Oh! 5 children went to bed on Christmas Eve. By morning, the house was ash. But when investigators sifted through the ruins, they found something impossible. No bones, no teeth, no trace of 5 human bodies. A house fire hot enough to destroy a building, but not hot enough to destroy bone. It was December 24th, 1945, Fayette County, West Virginia. The war had just ended, and George Sodder had built a life most immigrants only dreamed of. He'd come from Italy with nothing, worked the coal mines, then started his own trucking business. He and his wife Jennie had 10 children. That Christmas Eve, the younger 5, Maurice, Martha, Louise, Jennie, and Betty, stayed up late, playing with new toys on the second floor. George and Jennie went to sleep downstairs, along with 4 of the older children. Everything about that night was ordinary. Then, something changed. At 1 in the morning, Jennie woke to a loud bang on the roof. She smelled smoke. Within minutes, the downstairs was filled with it. George tried the light switch. Nothing. He ran for the staircase to reach the 5 children sleeping above. The stairs were already engulfed. He ran outside, looking for a ladder he always kept against the side of the house. It was gone. He tried to drive his truck close enough to climb onto the roof. Neither truck would start. Both had worked fine that afternoon. George Sodder stood in the snow, barefoot, watching his house burn, screaming the names of his children. Neighbors called the fire department. Nobody came. The Fayette County fire chief didn't arrive until 8 the next morning. By then, there was nothing left but a basement full of debris, barely 5 feet deep. The fire chief spent less than an hour on scene. He told the Sodders their children had been cremated by the fire. The death certificates were signed, case closed, but George and Jennie refused to accept it. They hired a cremation expert who told them what they already suspected. A house fire does not burn hot enough to incinerate bone. A crematorium requires sustained temperatures above 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit for hours. The Sodder house burned for approximately 45 minutes. There should have been remains. Families in Fayette County whispered what the Sodders said out loud. Those children were not in that house when it burned. But here's what the official investigation never addressed. In the weeks before the fire, George Sodder had received threats. He was an outspoken critic of Mussolini, and members of the local Italian community had warned him to stop. A life insurance salesman, after George refused a policy, told him his house would go up in smoke and his children would be destroyed. A month before Christmas Eve, witnesses reported seeing men on the road near the property, watching the house. The phone lines had been cut, not burned, cut. Some investigators believe the fire was deliberately set to cover a kidnapping. The missing ladder, the disabled trucks, the severed phone line, the delayed fire response. Each detail alone might be coincidence. Together, they form a pattern that is difficult to dismiss. Supporters of this theory point to multiple witnesses who reported seeing the children after the fire, in a car with out-of-state plates on Christmas morning, at a hotel in Charleston days later. But there was a problem. None of these sightings were followed up by law enforcement in time. Others have argued the children did perish in the fire, and the lack of remains was due to inadequate search methods. The official investigation in 1945 lasted hours, not days. When the Sodders finally excavated the site themselves in 1949, 4 years later, they found household objects, coins, and small bone fragments. The fragments were sent to a forensic specialist who determined they were not from children and had likely been planted. And yet, the state never reopened the case. The most unsettling development came in 1967. Jennie Sodder received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man, roughly the age her son Louis would have been. On the back, someone had written, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. Elil boys, A90132 or 35. The handwriting was never identified. The photograph was never traced. Private investigators hired by the family followed leads to the southeast. then hit dead ends. The Sodders erected a billboard along Route 16 with photos of the 5 children and a $20,000 reward. It stayed up for decades. George died in 1969, still searching. Jennie kept the billboard maintained until her own death in 1989. No one ever collected the reward. What the Sodder case reveals is not a single failure, but a cascade of them. A fire chief who spent less than an hour on a scene involving 5 missing children. A coroner who signed death certificates without a single piece of physical evidence. A state that refused to reopen an investigation even after planted bone fragments were identified. The Sodders did everything families are told to do. They hired experts. They went to the press. They spent their savings. None of it was enough. We have better forensic methods now than existed in 1945. None of them have ever been applied to this cold case. The site was paved over years ago. Whatever answers the ground held are buried beneath concrete. 5 children went to bed on Christmas Eve in West Virginia. A house burned for less than an hour. And when the ash cooled, there was nothing. No bones, no teeth, no remains of any kind. George and Jennie Sodder spent the rest of their lives asking one question, and no one has ever answered it. Where did those children go? The Unsolved Vault. New cases every week.